Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 181 in the book of Genesis. Today's title is What About Circumstances I Do Not Prefer? Stuff I don't like. So we left the story yesterday with Pharaoh during the famine. Step one is he sold the grain for basically all the money in the world. Step two was he sold the grain for all the livestock in the world. Step three was he sold the grain for all the people and the land in the world. And then finally he established a 20% tax. So at the end of the famine, Pharaoh possesses all the land, most of the money, all the people, and all the animals of Egypt. It's this incredible concentration of ownership and power and leadership. And it leaves the Egyptians, but I don't think the Israelites, because they were protected by Joseph and they owned because they were protected by Joseph. So the people of Egypt were owned lock, stock, and barrel by Pharaoh. So if it's true that the Jews were protected from this, it gives them a place and a land and livestock and produce to reproduce and to prosper. So in Genesis chapter 47, it says, "Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they gained possessions in it, and were fruitful and multiplied greatly." So while the rest of Egypt was under basically a servanthood to Pharaoh and selling all their stuff to Pharaoh, Israel is over here in Goshen gaining stuff. So everybody else was doing anything but prospering, and Israel, sequestered, is gaining possessions. And this sets up the perceived threat to Egyptian nationality in Exodus chapter 1. So they eventually, 400 years down the road, are going to put Israel into servitude, not into servitude, but into slavery. All right, so in verse 28, there's this 17-year time warp, and this is what I wanted to get is why didn't they leave after the famine was over? So here's the time warp, 28. "And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. And when the time came near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, 'Now if I found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Don't bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers,'" back in Israel. "'Carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place.' He answered, 'I will do as you have said.' And he said, 'Swear to me.' And he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed." So my big question today is, why didn't they leave for 17 years? Well, Joseph was still a slave. He was a very valuable person. Pharaoh was no knucklehead. He knew that Joseph had this incredible wisdom from God, that he was sort of this God-ordained and God-blessed, unique person. But the real answer is God wanted Israel to stay in Egypt, just like he wanted them to go to Egypt. So we know the rest of the story, and 400 years down the road, they're going to be sold into slavery. So again, we have something, just like Joseph, we have something unpleasant that's going to turn into something that is sovereign, or maybe it was sovereign all along. So like Joseph's revelation to his brothers was, "Hey, you sold me, but God sent me." So God had something better for Israel. And he's going to use their adversity, their slavery, to glorify himself. He's going to use their bondage into slavery to show his power. He's going to use the slavery of one Israelite, Joseph, and then the slavery of multiple millions of Israelites for the magnification of his name. So from their standpoint, however, don't get me wrong, he's going to use the suffering of Israel. It's going to be suffering, something they do not prefer, to proclaim his ways and his glory. So make no mistake, the Israelites are not going to like being slaves. Nobody does. So but the Lord is going to use that which they do not prefer to increase their access, and use that which they do not prefer to increase their influence for him, and use that which they do not prefer to increase their footprint in the world. Exodus 9 and 10, 8 and 9, a variety of verses. He said, why did all this stuff happen? So that you may know there's no one like the Lord our God. So that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. So that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth. So that my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. So that you may know that the earth is the Lord. So the question is, what is it that you might be experiencing today? Something you do not prefer, that may be used by God to increase his access and influence in the world. Your witness. What is it that you do not prefer that could be used, or maybe is being used by the Lord to expand his kingdom here on this planet? What is it that you do not prefer that may more effectively show his ways and his glory? What is it that you may not prefer, that you may not even fully understand, that can demonstrate his characteristics to a world that needs him? So why didn't they leave Egypt? Why didn't the person Jacob, Israel and his family leave Egypt? Well, the Lord was going to use them there to experience down the road something they did not prefer, slavery, so that his name may be proclaimed in all the earth. So I think the final point is that you too can use sovereign circumstances that you may not fully understand, and certainly for sure that you do not prefer, to show him to the world in a way that otherwise you could not. Thanks for listening.